I now give the floor to the permanent representative of Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Mr. President, for convening this meeting. Perhaps it's not really a day to make great speeches in view of the devastation we have heard of in Turkey and Syria. So may I have your indulgence to share the grief of Sri Lanka with Turkey and Syria by the suffering brought about by the devastating earthquake, and offer Syria and Turkey our condolences. Be that as it may, Mr. President, may I first of all thank the Secretary General, Guterres, for presenting his priorities and crystallizing those priorities in what we see as one principal plea to the world community, and that is that in 2023, that we need peace more than ever before if we are to effectively deal with the multiple crises that we face today. The Secretary General's priorities undoubtedly are very comprehensive, and a fine policy statement, I say, which sets out the trajectory the SG wishes the United Nations to pursue, and in my view should be seriously assimilated as part of our common agenda. We also need today, my dear friends, to give the precious commodity of peace primacy of place. For without peace, as we all know, no development can take place, lest the work we engage in this August Assembly becomes meaningless. The government of Sri Lanka commends the SG for efficiently managing the turbulent times that we have been through in recent times, and the guidance given to Sri Lanka in navigating the uncharted seas that we are compelled to navigate even at the present time. My dear friends, it must be accepted without demur that we have to work with all those who believe in the UN system in order that it becomes stronger, becomes effective, and consolidate the principles of multilateralism. We assure the Secretary General that Sri Lanka would unconditionally support him in his endeavors to prosecute his priorities successfully in a world where we face uncertain times and unsettled lives. It is clear that we have a fine roadmap and we are equipped with the necessary mechanisms, but find it difficult, as someone observed earlier, to effectively deliver. We do not, however, Sri Lanka, however, does not subscribe fully to the view that the failure of the UN system to deliver is an intrinsic weakness in the UN system, but attribute that inability to a large measure at the feet of member states who pay lip service to the ideals of the UN and conduct their activity with impunity, having cross regard perhaps to the Magna Carta of the UN system, the UN Charter, and the spirit of the Charter. So much so that the member states in the developing world continue to remain in a state of development, waiting for that day when we could rear our heads, breathe free, and tell ourselves that we can now live in peace and in dignity. It has been a long wait, my dear friends, without any silver lining to a rainbow that has been looming over our skies from time immemorial. It is not my intention to retrace the multiple factors that causes the economic contagion, which are well known. We have heard that inequalities are growing, inflation is rising, the climate crisis, pollution and the loss of biodiversity is alarmingly increasing. We are riddled with political violence and conflicts of great suffering and mistrust, or loss of confidence in acquiring proportions which are perhaps perilous. The digital environment has little regard to the rule of law. It has virtually the freedom of the wild ass, if I was to use that expression. The internet is full of defamatory material, hate speech, misinformation, and lies. We therefore cannot delay, and we need to act now and decisively. The woes of the developing world remains a constant. We are very regularly kept inadequately informed in many matters concerning our very existence, as in the case of the pandemic, and compelled to take measures that cause serious prejudice to our economies, perhaps uncalled for, as in the case of imposing severe lockdowns which impacted the economy seriously, which could have been mitigated had we been appropriately informed. We continue to suffer from a lack of development finance, climate finance, a lethargy in restructuring of debt and debt moratoriums, unless we agree to prescriptions which are even harder than the present economic woes. Distinguished delegates and friends, these inequities have also resulted in our inability to harmonize the real and financial economy and the economies of our communities and the money markets. We need the muscle to invest in human capital and our own financial capacities structured upon the Sustainable Development Goals. We are pleased to hear that the Secretary General will continue to push for fundamental reforms, as he was heard this morning. Mr. President, we are pleased to note that the Secretary General in ample measure has sensitized the international community to the urgent need for responsible government and for generous mitigatory measures. His constant reminder that we are at the edge of an abyss remains a warning which doesn't seem, of course, to be seriously heeded. We pray that the Secretary General will continue to be our voice in our global cry and assure him that all developed countries will rally around him in giving the Secretary General our utmost support in solidarity to address these challenges and reinvigorate multilateralism to successfully meet the challenges of the future. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the Permanent Representative of Sri Lanka.